Hello grapplers and welcome to a new video. This is the new guide for 2025 for Zangief. Why does this guide exist? The most obvious thing is that things have changed a little bit in certain areas, in others very much for Zangief. So we need to tackle a new game plan that is mostly going to involve how to use your meter and your spacing. But before we go ahead, I would recommend you to watch my previous video. It should be a link somewhere over here where I go through the differences between Zangief in 2024 and 2025, the version we have at the moment, October 1st, the moment I'm recording this. However, I'm still gonna touch very quickly the issues that Zangief has at the moment. Every single button was increased in the range of the hurtbox. It was pulled forwards. Besides making Zangief more easily punishable by a lot of buttons, it also creates a bunch of issues. The first, most notorious one is that you can no longer do this. The quick solution for this, at least for Blanca and Honda, is to do a jumping light kick, and then you can get it. This does not work in the mirror match. You can also do, and this is universal, but it's very hard to do, you need to delay your jumping forwards body splash. If you do it correctly, you're gonna hit them. There we go. This does not affect the super level 1, by the way. It's just Lariat. Also, another problem that he has is that this combo no longer works consistently, at least. Which was the old best combo you could get for DPs. That no longer works, and if it works in very specific scenarios. The only good thing about all of this is that this combo, now you don't need to cancel the health stab, you can go for super level 1 after hitting the health stab. That means you link into it, you don't cancel into super level 1. That specific thing does not justify everything that Zangief lost. Technically, he lost a little bit of range, but the main problem is mostly the hurtbox. It is so easy to whiff punish certain buttons for Zangief, especially the things that allow him to move forwards, like standing heavy punch or knee. Players, either due to general knowledge, maybe they've seen videos, maybe due to practicing, no matter what the case might be, they realize that backdash and forward jumps are the strongest things against Zangief. So it's pretty common for people to just backdash on block in situations like this, because they know you have almost nothing that can stop this, at least not at this range. It is pretty common now that if someone sees Zangief charging his standing heavy punch, they will backdash. That completely eliminates the pressure that Zangief can get, especially in the mid-range. The combination of those two factors are really hurting Zangief, and that's mainly the reason why I decided to update the guide. That being said, there's a secret third one that I haven't mentioned, and that one is the meter problems. The first chapter of this guide is going to relate to meter and how to use that properly between the super meter, the dry meter, and your health even. The thing you have to ask yourself consistently is, how much should I commit to something? And the three variables to answer that question are always your super meter, your dry meter, and your health. In order to make this a more easily thing to understand, let's see two examples against two different characters. Let's take a look at all the gauges at the moment. Zangief has the CA, that means that if you get that super roll, you're gonna get 5,200 points of damage, 20% health, and you have 3 dry meters. In the case of Ryu, he has over 50%, so if you go for a raw super level 3, even the CA, you will not beat Ryu. 2 dry meters, and he has no super. If you go into a combo into super level 3, take a look at the result of this situation. Ryu will survive this. He will have a little bit less than 50%, that is like 5-10% of a dry meter. And you have 20% health. That means that Ryu here, since you're in burnout, you have no way of closing the gap. He can just backwalk and threaten you with fireballs or free donkey kicks. And what could be even worse would be for him to get a random crouching medium kick into light Hashogeki or medium Hashogeki or OD Hashogeki and start a situation where you can get killed by just blocking. Essentially, going for something like this is not a good idea. Even though you have 3 dry meters for this example, remember that if you get the hit, you technically get a little bit more. But if that's not the case, especially if you get something on block, then things become a little bit complicated because you have to go for a reset and the reset is not going to get you the W. Considering the health you have, the dry meter you have, and the super you have, the best option here would be to whiff punish into a super and then get that into some kind of Oki. That would be the best case scenario. Or get a DRC that involves a counter hit or something into super level 2 and then get some kind of reset going. If you can take 1,000 or 2,000 out of Ryu's health, then your heavy SPD will do 3,300 and you will get the W. Or get some kind of wheel kick in the corner into health stab, OD Lariat, OD Borch Dynamite to get 5,000 more than 5.5k. You still wouldn't get the W. You would do so much damage that the next couple of pokes will get you the win. JP has 30% health, you have 70. You have no supers, but only 2 dry meters. JP has 4, and he has super level 2. The JP player will try to burn you out, and if necessary, he's going to go for super level 2. That super level 2 very likely will allow him to take you into the corner in burnout, and you won't be able to survive. What you need here is your dry meter. You're not gonna get the super meter very likely due to the amount of health JP has. At best, you're gonna get super level 1. The best case scenario here would be to get as much meter as possible so you can close the gap and get medium SPD. If you have no super, you do have health and you have dry meter, but only a little bit, your main goal should be to recover your dry meter at least enough so you can perfect parry drive rush, you can maybe roll driver sometimes or use a light into drive rush because that's what you require here. You need to do something with that little dry meter and very likely JP can do like a spike and take you to burnout. This is a completely different scenario, but it's equally important to recognize how many super meters the opponent has, how many you have, and all the other gauges. Zangief is a very dry meter hungry character because you need to use a lot of OD Lariat, especially to get into super level 3, and you also need to sometimes use OD SPD, which is your highest damaging SPD. The issue with this is that you're constantly using at least 2 drives of meter, almost every single time. If you get any kind of combo that involves headbutt health stab, your option will be to use OD Lariat. Should you go for that OD Lariat, you always need to drive rush. Your Oki is pretty bad if you don't do so. So essentially, every time you get a combo, you're always spending 3 dry meters. If you get a whiff punish with a standing light kick, either counter hit or punish counter, this is your combo. And again, if you drive rush here, you're gonna have 2 dry meters. Very close to burnout. I already made a video about this, but you can get crouching medium punch into standing heavy kick. Counter hit and punish counter, but they have to be standing. You still use 3 dry meters, but you get 30-60 as your damage. You can get the standing heavy punch, punish counter only. And of course, you can get headbutt, counter hit, and punish counter. What is the problem with all of these sequences? Oki. If you start any kind of these sequences with a punish counter and you want to DRC, you're gonna be using 3 dry meters for the DRC, of course, and then another one, and then 2 more for the OD Lariat, and then 1 for the drive rush. Essentially, you're gonna get to burnout if you whiff punish someone with standing light kick, crouching medium punch, and you decide to go for that sequence. This is not worth it. The important thing here to consider is how much damage you're doing, how much you need the Oki, and how much dry meter can you get back out of the sequence. Every time you do a combo and you want to recover dry meter, 2 things need to happen. Either you reset into a throw, ideally SPD, or you reset into a combo. If I do this combo, I'm not recovering any dry meter because I did a DRC. The good thing about this, it is an actual combo. So people cannot be mashing stuff because you're finishing your combo, and of course you can go into super level 2 and do a little bit more damage. The problem is still that you're using 3 dry meters. SPD recovers a lot of dry meter. Of course, every time you do SPD, you have to recognize that you have to drive rush again. So essentially, the dry meter you're using, you're gonna reinvest it into Oki. For a reset into a combo, you can dash here to be +5, but ideally you still need to drive rush. What I'm trying to say here is ideally the thing you're doing has to be reinvested into drive rush in order for you to continue the pressure going. So every time you go for a reset, that's what you'll need to do. That includes regular throws because a Spinebuster doesn't have the best Oki if you use dash anymore. You have to drive rush. Every time you need to recover your dry meter, you have to consider, should I go for the SPD, which is the one that's going to give me the most, or can I go for health stab or headbutt in order to recover as much dry meter as possible? So no matter what you do, you always have to be considering one extra drive meter for Zangief to start doing the drive rush and continue the pressure. Except in the corner where you can do different things, but most of the time, mid-screen, after any of your grabs, Spinebuster, SPD, Bosch Dynamite, Siberian Express, Russian Suplex, after every one of your grabs, you need to go for a drive rush. There are, of course, no-nos in this situation, and this is the most notorious one. There are more than this, but this is the one that's gonna cover the most Zangief players, I think. But there's a tendency for Zangief players to use drive rush on block from the standing light kick. Why is the issue with this? The first one is that every drive rush can be drive reversaled, no matter what kind of drive rush it is. As long as they know you're gonna go for it, they can just match the drive reversal. Therefore, what happens here is that you're losing more meter than what the opponent needs to be doing in order for you to be thrown away. And due to the position you are in, you can be in the corner and negative, while here you're not recovering anything until you completely wake up. So this is a big issue. You have to be careful with this, but this is only one problem. The other problem is, what do you get from this? And it's pretty simple. On block at least, that has a gap. It's plus 10 if you get the hit, plus 5 on block. Here we go, plus 5. Here you have some frame traps, but this has a gap. That means the opponent can just perfect parry, Shoryuken, or use super in between. You have to be careful with this. If you want to go into a sequence that has no gaps, you have to go for crouching light kick, which will leave you plus 1. Here your SPD is not real, so your frame trap is a delayed crouching light kick, or maybe crouching light kick standing light punch like this to be plus 2 with a gapless attack. The problem again is the investment. If you go for something like this, and let's say you get the SPD, you're essentially going to be playing always under 4 drive meters, very close to 3 drive meters. The other problem that is also pretty common, this happens mostly after super level 3, but it can happen in other sequences. People drive rush into standing light kick, and they drive rush again. You should already see what's the problem here. You're using a drive rush, standing light kick, which means you're using 1 drive meter, and now you use 3. This is your damage. 2,200, and you only recover at almost the very end of the combo, your drive meter. And you're still gonna be under 3 drive meters. This is worse if they block it. I've seen Zangief players do this. And this is basically the, yeah, I don't want to play this game anymore, just do whatever you want and you're gonna beat me. This is essentially a no-no. If you have to drive rush into standing light kick, always remember that it has no gaps, so you can stop there, but the opponent can drive reversal this. Same scenario, you're losing too much drive meter for this. And the drive rush standing light kick is not even plus. It's 0. The only way for me to recommend doing something like that is that if you see the opponent has less than 2 drive meters, therefore if they drive reversal or they use a DP, they're gonna go into burnout. So you can more or less pressure the opponent with a lot of frames. The other no-no I would recommend against is doing something like this. It's just because you're using way too much drive meter. It's not a bad idea if you're gonna take the W with the OD SPD, but in any other scenario, especially at the beginning of a fight, doing something like this is just essentially giving away your health to the opponent. The sweet spot for Zangief is 4 drive meters overall, because in this scenario, you can recover drive meter by just poking, something like this. You can also recover an entire drive meter just by doing the SPD. And you can drive rush again very safely because you're still gonna be above 4 drive meters or close to 4 drive meters. If you know the opponent is gonna whiff something and you recognize it, you can go into the OD SPD super level 3 after any of your whiff punishers and you're gonna recover the drive meter. If you have less than 4 drive meters, don't DRC, but you can use OD moves. If you have less than 3 drive meters, you can use 1 OD move, but you have to chill. You have to recover the drive meter that you invested. There's one combination of super meter and drive meter that is optimal, and that is crouching medium punch into super level 2. I'm gonna give shoutouts to Guy who's been performing this for a long time now, very consistently. This is done by getting a counter hit, ideally counter hit or punish counter, but you can get a regular one. You do this and you buffer during the animation of your crouching medium punch. This is not gonna be easy. It takes a little bit of time for you to get used to the hitbox of crouching medium punch. This is the route. Hellstab OD Borscht. From this point onwards, you can go for a drive rush. That drive rush is similar, quote unquote, to SPD. It's a little bit weaker. You can trade against some things, but you can still do drive rush sweep, drive rush knee, those things you can still do, but it's a little bit of a risk, a more significant risk over here because you're not that plus compared to SPD. If you really require the Oki, you can go for Super Level 1 instead of OD Borscht. You're gonna do less damage though. And the Oki of Super Level 1 is Drive Rush Light SPD, Medium SPD, Drive Rush Standing Medium Kick, Drive Rush Standing Medium Punch, Drive Rush into Nothing, Drive Rush Knee, all the things that usually are done after Drive Rush with Zangief. This is interesting because if you have 2 drive meters, which is less than the sweet spot I mentioned before, and you go for this combo, you technically recover at least a little bit of the drive meter you used. So you're still gonna be close to 2 drive meters. I wouldn't call it free, but you're not investing as much as you think. If for some reason you don't have Super Level 1, or you don't want to spend meter, or you need to recover meter, you can do the Hellstab Lariat as always. However, here, remember that you ideally need to drive rush. People are backdashing way too much against Zangief. And the reason is simple. If you're not close, how are you going to stop them? This is a problem because for you to catch backdashes, you have to react incredibly fast. If that's not the case, they're going to just block your Super Level 2. Your next option in terms of range and speed is sweep, 12 frames. But it's very rare for Zangief to be plus enough for you to catch people doing a backdash with sweep. It's mostly a Hail Mary if you're close. If you consider that the sweep is minus 13, you're really gambling. And of course, this has been nerfed. I mentioned that in my other video. People can back recover, so you need to drive rush again. The last one in terms of range is the standing heavy punch. This is even worse in that sense because it's 16 frames. You're definitely not gonna catch anybody. Unless you're super close. So how do you deal with this? First of all, you have to understand immediately that at this range, and even this range, you don't have tools to catch backdashes. That being said, there are ways for you to stop the backdashes, but all of them involve some kind of risk for Zangief. The first one is Headbutt Hellstab. There's a frame trap here, so they cannot backdash. You can hit confirm with the Hellstab into Lariat. The other one is a frame trap into Hellstab. Crouching Light Punch into Hellstab. This is technically a 6-frame frame trap. It's very risky, but you will catch people if they're backdashing if you're close. The other one is a frame trap from the standing medium punch. The rest of the target combo can catch people backdashing. And the last one is a frame trap from a drive rush. Very commonly standing light kick on block. This is something that people do a bunch. You cannot backdash this. There's another one that I would recommend against, but you can do it if you want to do so, which is pursue them with a dash. You're never gonna be fully plus because Zangief dash is very slow, 22 frames. But you can be cheeky here and do Super Level 3. All of these options also cover jumps. The interesting one here is that Hellstab technically juggles in the air. That means if you're in the corner, you can get this combo. Or you can do Super Level 1 if you have your reactions on point. All of those options, of course, involve some kind of 50-50, which is a big issue, because they can just master Shoryuken. Since you're always doing a gap, you have to commit to it. You have to read that they're jumping. That's a very important thing for Zangief in every single matchup. You need to read your opponent. How many times is that person backdashing, jumping, forward dashing, etc, etc. There's another issue for Zangief, of course. Whiffing. It is pretty common for Zangief to whiff if you don't space yourself correctly. Let's lay some rules immediately. Your longest button to whiff punish is a standing heavy punch. This thing hits from very far. The next one is sweep. Both of them are very long buttons. Everything else has less range, with the exception of something wild like a jumping dropkick or the wheel kick. Those two are your main tools to poke from distance. That being said, they're very slow and then reactable. If someone is moving at this range with backdashes, you shouldn't commit to either your standing heavy punch or your sweep. In fact, you shouldn't commit at all. Both of them have to be used for counter poking. That means if someone is pressing something, you have to press your standing heavy punch or your sweep. Ideally from a distance, of course. You can use a standing medium kick as a measuring tool. If a standing medium kick whiffs like this, your sweep will connect with the tip, and your standing heavy punch will connect with the majority of the punch. If instead of being here, you are here, and your standing medium kick whiffs, your sweep will also whiff, but your standing heavy punch will connect with the tip. And at this range, nothing will connect. So the idea is for you to measure your distance with the standing medium kick, which is your longest button that is not a sweep or standing heavy punch. That is why you'll see so many Zangief players sometimes going for this, because not only it's a button that is still somewhat difficult to whiff punish, it's also a really good tool to just to measure how far you are from the opponent. Of course, be careful, this is not a button to just spam. If you don't get it and you don't measure your distance correctly, just don't press it again because it's very risky. That being said, they can still whiff punish this, because remember, you're whiffing here. You don't have any plus frames. The other way to mostly guarantee your standing heavy punch is to do a drive rush. Because this is your longest button, it's very hard for it to whiff. A standing heavy punch fully charged has more range than just a tap one. But if I fully hold it, I get more range. That being said, you have to be careful with that thing if you're doing drive rushes, because it's pretty easy to react to. That is risky. But at the risk of sounding like a broken record, people will backdash and they will have the chance to do so very often. You don't have to pursue every single backdash, every single back jump, every single neutral jump or forward jump. Read your opponent and react accordingly. Most of the things haven't changed since my last guide. That means you always have to use a lot of lights. Lights are very important for this character. Standing light punch spaces you very well. If you do something like this, your standing medium punch still connects if they're trying to press a button. Ideally a short 6-framer, 7-framer, or a 4-framer. You can still do tick throws very easily from crouching light punch, either 1 or 2. Crouching light kick is your only 4-framer. It's meant to be used defensively, not for attacking. If you need to do something like this, change it to crouching light punch. Crouching medium punch DRC, crouching medium punch on block doesn't have a gap in the same way as this one. And abusing headbutt is always gonna be a thing. You always need to abuse this thing, even though this has a 10-frame gap. Sometimes people are just way too scared to jump. Your anti-airs are still gonna be Lariat, that hasn't changed. Jumping medium punch against characters like Bison, Chun-Li or Rashid. And crouching medium kick is still one of your buttons that could allow you to perform a little bit better in the grounded game. While stomps are not really that useful, there are some very specific punishes and some very specific resets where you can use them. Like this one, which is the one I showed before. You're gonna be +4, or in the corner, if you get a close lariat, you can do the stomp 1, it will whiff, the stomp 2 will connect naturally into stomp 3. This of course is very negative on block. So you still need to drive rush. But the second one on block is -3, so you're safe. This is pretty much the guide for Zangief for 2025. Ideally, if you have the time, go and watch my 2024 one, because a lot of things haven't changed, at least in terms of how you establish your offense. This guide is meant to just close the gap and help you to understand what things are happening with Zangief and how you have to solve them. There's also the video from 2024 to 2025. That one can also help you. As always, take care of yourselves, keep playing grapplers, and I'm gonna be seeing you in the next video. Hydrate. Go to the Savira Lab on Twitch. Bye bye.